So when you look at a building that's, visibly crumbling, your first instinct is usually to just put up some scaffolding.
Yeah, exactly. You do damage control.
Right. You try to prop it up, maybe you patch the cracks, you throw a tarp over the worst of the damage.
I mean, the immediate reaction is always just maintaining the existing structure, regardless of how fundamentally flawed the foundation might be. It's an act of preservation, not reinvention.
Totally. But what if the person who actually knows how to fix, like the person who holds the blueprint for a completely new, way better building is the one who's trapped under the rubble?
Oh, wow, that is a heavy image.
Yeah, but that's what we're looking at today. We are going on a deep dive into the vast, just incredibly multifaceted mind of a 53-year-old Israeli man named Asaf Benyamini.
And it is quite a journey.
It really is. We're exploring a mind that is constantly drafting these brilliant blueprints while carrying an immense personal burden. Our source material today is this raw, massive collection of his personal letters, his legal drafts, Facebook posts, and even some fully fleshed out tech proposals.
Which is amazing. And the sheer scope of this material offers, well, a comprehensive critique of how modern society treats its most vulnerable.
Yeah.
Through his writings, we're going to examine his exhaustive 15-year battle with state bureaucracy.
A battle that is just exhausting to even read about.
Exactly. And we'll analyze his surprisingly innovative technological proposals for healthcare and really unpack his broader philosophical reflections on human dignity and social justice.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to truly grasp the weight of his critique, we have to understand the sheer friction of his daily life.
You really do. The context is everything here.
We need to look at the mechanics of what he is fighting through just to, sit down at a keyboard and type out these proposals. In a legal claim for damages he drafted, he meticulously lists his medical reality. And I have to say, it isn't just a list of ailments, it's this compounding cycle of physical and cognitive barriers.
Right, because it's the intersection of these conditions that creates such an insurmountable hurdle. I mean, he documents severe pre-existing mental health conditions,
Yeah.
specifically OCD and schizoaffective disorder. And those alone require just immense cognitive energy to manage every single day. But then, you layer on the physical deterioration.
Right. He suffers from psoriatic arthritis and severe chronic disc herniation, which causes radiation down his legs and makes walking incredibly difficult for him.
Which completely isolates him.
Completely. And on top of that, he has neurological issues that cause him to just involuntarily drop objects paired with significant vision problems.
So it's an all-encompassing physical struggle.
Yep. Yeah, so if we look at how this actually plays out in his day-to-day life, we see him reaching out to a Facebook group about gadgets. He's desperate for an electronic device just to help him write checks.
Just a basic administrative task.
Right. Because his hand's involuntarily open and his vision is failing, so the simple act of holding a pen and seeing the paper is nearly impossible. And he also writes about needing assistance for tasks as basic as washing dishes or making his bed.
Which naturally leads him to seek help from the very systems and organizations that were, ostensibly built to provide that exact assistance.
You'd think so, right? So he reaches out to a company called Dagesh. He's looking to schedule a matching meeting for assistive technology. And he sends this highly detailed, very polite email.
Right, outlining his exact constraints.
Exactly. He explains the mechanics of his situation. He relies entirely on a minimal disability pension. His severe mobility issues mean he physically cannot travel to their offices, and he has no family members to accompany him.
And the response he receives is just a masterclass in institutional blindness.
Oh, it's so bad.
It really is. Instead of engaging with the specific barriers he just outlined, the company sends back what appears to be like a boilerplate corporate template.
Of course they do.
They inform him that the preliminary meeting alone costs 500 shekels.
Which he doesn't have.
Right. And furthermore, he is required to bring a family member, coordinate the session with a paramedical professional, and pay an additional premium for the staff's travel costs because he lives outside their main service area.
I mean, he physically cannot afford a 500 shekel fee to even find out if a gadget exists that might help him wash a dish.
Exactly. It's an impossible ask.
And the organization demands a family member from a man who just explicitly stated he has no family. They demand travel premiums from a man living on a subsistence pension. It's infuriating.
It's completely tone deaf.
But the friction reaches an entirely new level when he turns to the state itself. Asaf files a claim with the National Insurance Institute for a special services benefit. It's known as the Sharam benefit, designed specifically for people who need help with basic daily activities.
And the initial response to that vital application is absolute silence.
Just crickets.
Yeah. And when he eventually escalates the issue by complaining to the state comptroller's office, the situation devolves into something resembling, like, dark comedy.
Oh my gosh, yes. Because an employee from the controller's office actually calls him back, but they call from a blocked number.
You can't make it up.
You really can't. And the advice this employee gives Asaf is to simply call the National Insurance Institute's general hotline, ask for the status of the application, and then get back to the controller in 2 weeks.
Which completely ignores the reality of the system.
Totally. Asaf writes a scathing response detailing the sheer absurdity of this instruction. He points out that the National Insurance Institute doesn't even provide a direct number.
Right, they only have a message center.
Exactly, a message center where the clerks are notorious for never returning calls. And because the controller's employee called from a blocked number, Asaf literally cannot even call him back to report his progress.
So he's completely trapped.
Yeah, it feels less like a broken system and more like a maze specifically designed to exhaust the mouse before it ever reaches the cheese.
That maze analogy is perfect, and it connects directly to a profound framework Asaf references from a writer named Oren Segal.
Oh, right, the cognitive barrier concept.
Exactly. Segal describes this labyrinthine bureaucracy as a cognitive barrier. Or, to put it in modern technological terms, it operates as a human DDoS attack.
Wait, I need to push back on that for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
A distributed denial of service, a DDoS attack, is inherently malicious, right? It's an intentional flooding of a server with fake traffic by a bad actor just to crash a website. Are we actually saying the National Insurance Institute designed this bureaucratic maze on purpose as a malicious tactic to keep marginalized people down? Or is this just the tragic, inevitable result of massive, underfunded bureaucratic incompetence?
That is the crucial distinction to make. Whether the original intent was explicitly malicious or just born of structural apathy, the functional outcome is identical to a DDoS attack.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the server crashing in this scenario is the human mind. The bureaucracy floods marginalized groups with endless forms, contradictory technical requirements, and impossible phone trees.
Right.
And this occupies 100% of their cognitive and emotional bandwidth. I mean, think about it. If you are entirely preoccupied with fighting for a 500 shekel waiver, or spending days trying to find a working phone number just to survive the week,
You have zero energy left for anything else.
exactly, you have no bandwidth to unite with others, draft legislation, or lead social change. The system neutralizes dissent by forcing the dissenting class into a state of perpetual exhaustion.
Wow. The friction itself is the silencer. That is a terrifyingly effective mechanism.
What's fascinating here is the empowering pivot Asaf makes within this framework.
How so?
He argues that because marginalized people have been forced to navigate this maddening high-friction maze every single day, they possess a unique asset, expertise from experience.
Oh, because they've lived it.
Exactly. They understand the mechanics of the failure. They know exactly which forms are redundant, which phone lines are dead, and where the institutional blind spots are.
Right.
And this specialized knowledge makes them the ideal architects to redesign the system.
They aren't just victims of the maze. They are the only ones who actually know the floor plan.
That's a great way to put it.
And Asaf embodies this transition from victim to architect perfectly, despite the exhaustion we just detailed. I mean, living on a minimal state allowance, having zero budget, possessing no formal coding background, and being physically unable to attend in-person meetings, he is actively designing complex software architecture.
And pitching it, too.
Yeah, pitching it to tech companies like leveluplife.com.
And the technical proposals he drafts are remarkably sophisticated,
Yeah.
specifically because they address the exact blind spots mainstream developers usually miss.
Let's look at the mechanics of his first major pitch. He designed a food finder app for individuals with severe food allergies. Now, allergy apps exist, obviously, but Asaf identifies a massive intersectional gap.
Which is so often overlooked.
Yeah. Mainstream apps typically filter for allergens like peanuts or shellfish. Asaf proposes integrating complex cultural and religious dietary filters, specifically Jewish kosher laws and Islamic halal laws.
Because mainstream technology companies often design for the broadest majority use case. They rarely build infrastructure for the intersections of minority needs.
Right, they miss the nuance.
Yeah. Asaf recognizes that a user might suffer from a life-threatening gluten allergy while also strictly adhering to halal dietary laws. By failing to overlap these filters, The existing technology effectively excludes entire religious populations from safely participating in public dining.
He sees the invisible walls.
It really does.
And his second pitch takes that systemic empathy even further. He proposes an AI-driven operating system designed specifically for dementia and Alzheimer's patients.
From a systems design perspective, the mechanics of this proposal are brilliant.
Yeah, tell us about how it works.
Well, as a user's cognition declines due to dementia, standard computer interfaces with their nested folders, complex menus, and rapid notifications, they become overwhelming.
Sure, it's just too much input.
Right. And eventually, this locks the user out of their own digital life. But Asaf's proposal leverages artificial intelligence to monitor the user's interaction in real time.
Wait, how does that actually work in practice? Like, how does an operating system know you are declining?
So the AI would measure behavioral metrics, tracking cursor hesitation, monitoring typing rhythm, or measuring the response time to on-screen prompts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And if the AI detects an increase in cognitive load or confusion, it dynamically simplifies the interface.
That's incredible.
It is. It might automatically hide complex submenus, enlarge essential icons, or reduce background visual noise, leaving only the most basic necessary functions.
So it essentially morphs to meet the user wherever their brain happens to be that day.
Precisely. And the underlying mechanism here is the preservation of human dignity. By dynamically adapting to their fading abilities, this software allows individuals to retain access to their digital memories, their communication tools, and their connection to the outside world for significantly longer.
It staves off the isolation that usually accompanies cognitive decline.
Absolutely.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because I was reading through the source documents, and at the bottom of these incredibly detailed, empathetic tech proposals, Asaf includes these stark disclaimers.
Right, I noticed that too.
Yeah, on the food app pitch, he explicitly writes, I personally do not have any food allergies. And on the operating system pitch, he states, I have nothing to do with dementia care in my personal life.
Which is just wild to think about.
It is. He is completely detached from the specific suffering these tools address. Why is a man who is fighting tooth and nail just to get an unblocked phone call from a government office spending his precious, limited cognitive bandwidth designing tools for entirely different communities?
Well, it demonstrates the profound nature of his empathy.
Yeah.
Because his own suffering has acted as a lens rather than a blinder. When someone intimately understands the mechanics of exclusion, when they live the daily reality of being sidelined by a society designed exclusively for the healthy and able-bodied bored of him, they develop a highly sensitive radar for structural inequality across the board.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, Asaf doesn't need to have dementia to recognize that the digital world is building walls around dementia patients. His expertise from experience in navigating his own storms allows him to spot the invisible barriers hindering others.
He absolutely refuses to let his pain make him inward focused.
Right.
Which brings us to how Asaf views the broader societal structures around us. Because his empathy extends far beyond individual software solutions.
Beyond.
Over his 15-year advocacy, which he traces back to at least 2007, he has constantly sought funding and sponsors to produce documentaries exposing the systemic failures facing the disabled in Israel.
He's been relentless.
He writes passionately about the stagnation of rent assistance, which, hasn't kept pace with skyrocketing living costs and the glaring lack of accessible public transportation. But out of all his writings, there is one particular observation he shares on Facebook that really paints the starkest picture of his worldview.
The contrast he observes outside the Knesset.
Yes. For context, the Knesset is the Israeli parliament. Asaf describes being outside this building on a freezing day, and he encounters a homeless man sitting on a piece of cardboard begging for alms.
Yeah.
Asaf actually stops and speaks with him, discovering that the man was recently discharged from a psychiatric hospital. He has absolutely nowhere to go. The welfare agencies know about him, the National Insurance Institute knows about him, and yet he is left on the pavement.
That is the brutal, immediate reality of a failed social safety net.
Then Asaf pans his perspective just a stone's throw away to the Knesset building itself.
The juxtaposition is jarring.
It really is. He describes this luxurious, pristine facility operating on a budget of $1 billion a year, filled with air conditioning, cafeterias, and endless committee rooms.
Yeah.
And he notes that inside one of those rooms, a highly respected medical professor is screaming in fury, passionately debating whether Israel should withdraw from the World Health Organization.
High-level geopolitical posturing occurring mere yards away from foundational societal failure.
The hypocrisy is just agonizing. They are spending millions of dollars and countless hours debating global health policies because it involves prestige, institutional power, and international relations.
Right.
Meanwhile, a citizen who just fell out of their own domestic mental health system is freezing on cardboard right outside the door, and they simply step over him.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Asaf utilizes two distinct parables in his writings to illustrate exactly why a society that operates this way is fundamentally illegitimate.
Oh, the stories he shares.
Yeah. The first is a historical anecdote about a Canadian judge. An elderly man is brought into court charged with stealing food because he was quite literally starving.
Heartbreaking.
And the judge acknowledges the strict parameter of the law, stating, I cannot ignore the law, so the fine is $10. But the judge immediately pulls a $10 bill from his own pocket to pay the fine for the man.
A gesture of personal empathy.
But he doesn't stop at personal empathy. He escalates it to collective responsibility.
What does he do?
The judge turns to the gallery and fines every single person in the courtroom $10. He declares, "You are all guilty because we live in a city where an old man is forced to steal to keep from starving."
Wow.
Yeah. The judge's assertion is that a city leadership that turns a blind eye to such foundational inequality loses its moral right to govern.
That is a staggering standard to hold society to.
It is. And Asaf pairs that with an old Eastern European tale about a rabbi visiting a family's home on a snowy, muddy day.
Okay, I love this one.
So the rabbi deliberately enters through the back door to remove his muddy boots, explicitly to avoid dirtying the family's expensive living room furniture. But instead of being grateful, the homeowner is deeply horrified.
Wait, horrified that the rabbi was being polite?
Horrified by the hierarchy of values being demonstrated, the homeowner tells the rabbi, "You are conveying a distorted message to my children that the material furniture in this house is more important than the spiritual teaching you bring."
Oh, I see.
And the homeowner actually forces the rabbi to go back outside, put his boots back on, and walk through the front door, intentionally tracking mud across the pristine furniture before the lesson can begin.
So Asaf is using these stories to build a unified theory of societal value. A society is entirely illegitimate if it prioritizes its own ego, its institutions, or its material wealth over human connection and basic survival.
Exactly.
The billion-dollar Knesset building is the pristine furniture. The freezing homeless man is the mud they refuse to let inside.
The preservation of the institution has superseded the purpose of the institution.
Okay, so what does this all mean? How do we get from a freezing homeless man and geopolitical debates to Asaf's extensive writings on private therapy sessions and equal law enforcement?
That's the leap we need to make.
Yeah, because I have to admit, as I was reading the source material, I struggled to see the through line between a global health debate outside Parliament and a patient sitting on a therapist's couch. Help me bridge that gap.
So, the bridge connecting all of these seemingly disparate topics is the concept of institutional ego.
Okay.
Asaf writes critically about his experiences in psychological therapy, noting that what is not said in the session is often the most critical element. Both patients and therapists rely on silent omissions, ignoring the hardest, most inconvenient truths because confronting them is destabilizing.
I get that. It threatens the established order of the room.
Precisely. Asaf argues that effective therapy requires constant reassessment of both the patient and the methodology. However, a therapist's professional ego often prevents this.
Like they're too proud to adjust.
Exactly. The therapist assumes the posture of the ultimate authority, like, "I am the trained professional, the patient cannot teach me how to heal."
Right.
By clinging to that ego and refusing to acknowledge their own blind spots, the therapist does immense harm. Asaf is showing us that this exact same mechanism of institutional ego scales all the way up.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the bureaucrat who sends the boilerplate email operates on the exact same ego. I am the state authority. You are just the applicant. I don't need to reassess my forms to fit your reality.
Spot on. And it scales up to the justice system and the government itself. Asaf writes that the concept of equal law enforcement is a complete myth.
A myth?
Yeah, a governing body driven by institutional ego will inherently prioritize the well-being and protection of those closest to the center of power, those most similar to the rule makers themselves.
Naturally.
Conversely, they will aggravate punishments and bureaucratic friction for the marginalized groups on the periphery. The therapist ignores the patient's unspoken needs. The tech company ignores the minority dietary intersection.
The National Insurance Institute ignores the disabled pensioner.
And the Knesset ignores the homeless man. It is all the same silent omission.
That is so powerful. Asaf is demanding that we stop looking away from the omissions. We have taken an incredible journey through his mind today. We've traced the grinding, daily, physical friction of his medical reality.
Oh,
We've navigated the deliberate, exhausting maze of state bureaucracy that attempts to silence him. We've explored his completely selfless, highly technical blueprints designed to preserve the dignity of people he doesn't even know.
amazing work.
And we've unpacked his fiercely moral philosophy regarding how a just society must prioritize the vulnerable over its own pristine furniture.
He is a man forced to navigate a maze designed to exhaust him, and instead of collapsing, he has meticulously drawn a map for the rest of us.
This brings us back to our starting point. Traditionally, our society views disabled individuals purely as dependents. They are viewed as administrative burdens to be managed or subjects requiring our charity. They are the crumbling building that we must begrudgingly put scaffolding around.
But Asaf's framework demands a radical reassessment. He proves that marginalized individuals are the ultimate stress testers of our social infrastructure.
Yeah.
Their daily friction provides the exact data needed to redesign our broken systems.
This raises a massive question about where we are heading next. We spent time today discussing Asaf's vision for artificial intelligence, using it to adapt to human needs and preserve dignity.
Right.
But as massive bureaucratic institutions increasingly turn to AI to handle their crushing workloads, we have to wonder how this technology will actually be deployed.
That's the million-dollar question. Will these institutions use AI to finally dismantle the human DDoS attack?
Let's hope so.
Right. Will AI act as an advocate, automatically navigating the maze, filling out the contradictory forms, and clearing the bandwidth for the marginalized? Or will institutional ego win out? Will governments simply use AI to build a faster, cheaper, and completely impenetrable wall of algorithmic silence where there isn't even a blocked number left to call?
That is a chilling yet essential thought to leave you with. Next time you encounter a broken system or a silent omission in your own community, don't just complain about the rubble. Look for the architect who might be trapped underneath it. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the mind of Asaf Benyamini. Keep questioning the structures around you, and we'll see you next time.